Hello, fellow fantasy sports fans. Welcome to MFSN Sports Philosophy 101, Thursdays at 4 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Pacific. I'm Dr. Dan Ratner, and I'm here as always with Casey, Vlad to the Bone, Scheinvold, and Ross the Boss.
Hey, everybody. Ross the Boss coming live from La La, California, Lipstick City. And yes, we're talking about the worst trades ever. I'm going to include the time I was at Maryland with Casey, and we traded Casey away from our rec team for a different player, and that was a horrible trade. We got
terrible trade. Never trade Casey. But
horrible.
Ross, let's and Casey, of course, let's talk about why we decided to do this. We just had the NBA draft, and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander was in some ways included in one of the worst trades in history for Paul George. Ross, take us through that deal, and then let's talk about whether that was the worst trade in history.
So, of course, it's my Clippers who had Alexander on the team, and they thought it was a brilliant idea to get an aging Paul George to come to LA for a young, I think, second year or first year?
Second year.
That's a terrible deal.
I mean, 7 first-round draft picks.
Yeah.
Was it 7?
7 first-round draft picks, and Paul George is making like all this money, like a lot. So it locked their cap up. And,
oh my God!
And throughout the Clipper career of Paul George, he probably played about 50% of the games.
Yeah.
He load management, then he got hurt. Load management, hurt. So. And now this guy, Alexander, he was the MVP this year of the NBA, and he just won the championship for his team too. And he was the MVP of the playoffs, I believe, Casey, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So, I mean, if you're a Clippers fan, you got to think that's certainly the worst Clippers trade in history, I hope. It's got to be up there for worst ever. I mean, it's so
bad.
But
it got us thinking. We, like you said, like it opened your mind. Like, I wonder what the worst trades ever were. And there's a number of them,
So let's bring up some other. And by the way, we can do any sport, whatever you guys want to talk about. What are some of the worst trades that you remember?
That I remember. Okay.
Well, no, you don't. It doesn't have to be ones you remember. Like we can talk about Babe Ruth. It's got to be.
Well, that's got to be one of them. But I was actually going onto the good side for the Red Sox when they stole Pedro Martinez from the Montreal Expos for what did they get? They got like Carl Pavano and Tony Armas Jr.
Ooh, that's a pretty good trade.
He had just won Cy Young. I think he had just won the Cy Young Award with the Expos, and they were afraid he was going to walk, and so they made that trade of all trades. Like,
all right, but I'm going to make a counter argument for why this basketball trade is significantly worse than that. Pedro
I'm not saying this, but he broke the curse. You have to remember the Red Sox hadn't won a World Series in how long?
Yep. No, the context definitely matters. But the thing is, almost any baseball trade can't be the worst trade in history because you just don't know what Babe Ruth. We can talk about that because he was an established. I mean, not only was he a major league player, but he was the best player in baseball.
In his career. I mean, he did win the home run hitting title that year he was traded.
It would be like trading Ohtani right now. For whatever, and then whatever that franchise went on to do is just win tons and tons of World Series with Ohtani.
Well, the first question of the Babe Ruth thing is the musical's name that he was traded for from the Broadway producer. What was the name of the musical that he was traded for?
I mean, on that one, I just knew it was $100,000.
Yeah,
no, it was $100,000 plus a $300,000 loan.
Oh, there you go.
Okay. Wow.
And the guy needed the money because he was funding a Broadway musical.
Okay, I didn't remember that part.
Yeah.
So, Casey, Google that. See if you can figure out what this Broadway musical is. I mean, the thing about the Babe Ruth trade is Babe Ruth was already basically the best player in baseball.
Yeah.
He was pitching, he was hitting, he led the league in home run.
And the context where the Red Sox gave him to the Yankees. I mean, and that rivalry was really born right there, and the Red Sox just had nothing until they broke the curse. And it is hugely amazing to me that they did that coming back from 3-0 against the Yankees. It's such poetic justice. I'm sorry, Casey, but you've had plenty of wins. I don't think we need to feel too. There's no crying from the yacht, as they say. But the Babe Ruth deal, easily could be one of the worst ever. But most baseball trades, you just don't know. I mean, with Pedro Martinez, sure, they knew what they were getting something good, but they didn't even give up that much to do it. It's like, whereas the Thunder, they received 4 first-round picks and 2 first-round pick swaps. Oh, no, 5 first-round picks.
Yep.
One of them protected, some of them not protected, and 2 first-round pick swaps and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, and they handed over Paul George and all the money they owed him. Like, it's up there for worst trade in history. Now, I'll tell you, as a Cleveland fan, the worst trade that I remember as a Cleveland fan was when we traded Ron Harper for the rights to Danny Ferry. We didn't even know if Danny Ferry would come play with us. We know how this did not work out well in multiple ways. And ultimately what ended up happening, even though Ron Harper injured his knees, he ended up being a key cog in the Chicago Bulls championships. And then later, Los Angeles Lakers championships. Ron Harper was a great, great player, and he was the best player on the Cavs at the time. And Danny Ferry came in as a total bust. So that's a big deal. It's not as bad as this trade.
Well, how
tells
about
you something?
If we're talking about the NBA, how about 1987 when the Seattle Supersonics traded their 5th overall pick, Scottie Pippen, to
That's
the
a good
Bulls
one.
for Olden Polynice and 2 draft picks?
That's pretty bad.
That's
pretty
pretty
I mean,
bad.
I'm
I
not saying
spent
it's
New Year's
necessarily
Eve with
as
Olden
bad,
Polynice
but
one year.
that's awful.
It's pretty bad.
That's
I feel
bad.
like the NFL has so
Casey,
many bad
do you want to
trades
hear
in
what's
it that
worse
it's
than that?
hard.
Do you want to hear what's worse than that trade? Is Kobe Bryant was traded for Vlade Divac.
Divac, yeah, I know.
In Sacramento
Charlotte.
traded. Yeah, I mean, think about that trade. One of the greatest players ever in the NBA traded for Vlade.
It's pretty bad. Now listen, this isn't a trade, but the Portland Trailblazers traded their 2nd-round pick to get Sam Bowie and not take Michael Jordan. It wasn't a trade, but it kind of is.
It's a good quiz question. Who was drafted before Michael Jordan?
Yeah.
Sam Bowie.
Hakeem Olajuwon was that. That's it's amazing that Hakeem Olajuwon getting picked before Jordan is actually okay because Olajuwon was that good, but still, a bit of a mistake. But Sam Bowie before that.
No.
All right, what are some other trades that you guys can think of that are
somebody that my team that I have a lot of respect for, and one of my favorite players of all time, Ken Griffey Jr. was traded from Seattle to the Reds for Brett Tomko and Mike Cameron.
But I feel like it was a bad trade, but that's unfair because Griffey said he wasn't going to re-sign with Seattle because he wanted to go to Cincinnati. And Seattle had zero leverage.
Right, but Brett Tomko
I know.
Mike Cameron, average player. Tomko.
But actually, I got to agree with Casey on that because like the Cavs traded LeBron James at one point because they had to. They were forced to, and when you're forced to by the players, it's different. But
I guess you're right.
When a GM is just like, you know what, I feel like dealing Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and 7 first-round picks for Paul George. Like they just chose.
Do you think when they were doing that trade, do you think they said, okay, we'll give you 5 first-round picks, and they said, no deal. You want 7 or forget it. And the Clippers came crawling back and said, okay, you got a deal.
All right, fine.
What do you think about the Ryan Leaf trade? Where
Remind me of what it was.
San Diego sent 2 first-round picks and a second-round pick and 2 players to move up from number 3 to number 2 to select Ryan Leaf.
Yeah, that's pretty bad. How about the Herschel Walker deal?
Oh, I know. That's
one of the famous deals of all time. So Herschel, quick background, he had a great year when he was traded. I mean, it wasn't like he was bad, but the players they got for all those picks the Dallas Cowboys got for Herschel, I mean, that's how they win the championships. You know what I mean?
It is entirely how they won the championship.
Wow.
So you could argue that that's the worst trade in history. I think that one is a strong contender.
Steve Young traded to the 49ers from Tampa Bay because they felt he was going to be a bust.
Yeah, there's those kind of trades where there's just like a team made a complete bonehead move, and then there's trades like Shai Gilgeous-Alexander or Herschel Walker where it's like they got so much value and they got something great out of the trade to begin with. I mean, let's look at, wasn't Emmitt Smith one of those picks?
Yes, Emmitt Smith was, and Woodson was.
I think they had the Aikman pick, but didn't they get Michael Irvin?
They got a whole new team from that trade. I mean,
and they won three Super Bowls.
Woodson.
But if you traded young Emmitt Smith for old Herschel Walker, you won that deal. Getting Emmitt Smith, and they did so much more than that. Are any other trades?
Randy Moss was a Raider. He had no interest in playing there.
And so they sent him to the Patriots. Yeah.
Patriots, and he played 52 games for the Patriots, and he scored 50 touchdowns.
That's, oh my God. And we know how much it hurts when you're the team that dealt away something really, really good.
Well, Dan, one of the cornerstones when we played fantasy baseball in the previous league, one of the cornerstones of your team, Miguel Cabrera. Do you remember that trade? He was 24 years old, had already played in 4 or 5 All-Star games, and they traded him and Dontrell Willis, who ended up being decent too, for Dallas Traherne, Burke Badenhop, Frankie De La Cruz, Cameron Maben, the only one anybody remembers. Andrew Miller became a decent reliever eventually, and Mike Rabello.
Mike Rabella. I still have him on my team.
And actually, that does bring up another point, Casey, that we kind of made reference to before. But like Miguel Cabrera was an established great player, and he was 24 years old,
right in his prime. Like not even in his prime yet.
Yeah.
I mean, he won the Triple Crown once or twice for you. I forget.
I mean, there's been superstars have been traded, like Will Chamberlain, Kareem
But the 76ers traded him. Well, Abdul-Jabbar was a bad one. The Bucks traded him to the Lakers.
Mark McGwire was traded from the A's.
Sammy Sosa.
I mean, there's been a lot of superstar trades and
tons of superstar trades.
I mean, my question to you is this: I mean, was it because he didn't want to? These players did not want to leave there, or the team was too cheap to sign them to big contracts, and they wanted.
See, I mean that's the kind of thing that Like I remember when the Guardians were still the Indians, and we let go of CC Sabathia and Cliff Lee in back-to-back years, and then we had to watch the World Series the next year with those two facing off, Phillies and Yankees.
Yeah.
And
we traded. The year he was traded was one of I thought he could have won the Cy Young in both leagues.
Yeah,
I mean
that would have been amazing.
I mean, look what happened in the Angels. I mean, the Angels had Ohtani, right? And they had the whole summer to trade him, the whole summer, knowing that he's not going to stay there and they're not going to pay $700 million from this day. And instead of getting something for him, something, $8.5 million. Like
I don't know if they were just, I guess, deluded into thinking that they could keep him or something. But
and so that's sometimes, especially in baseball, I would say football and basketball really they don't do that, but baseball because there's the trade deadline and you guys have a loaner for 3 months.
And you're trading guys who are in the minor leagues. Like the other two leagues don't have minors.
Exactly.
Fernando Tatis Jr. was traded for James Shields.
That's a good quiz question. I like that.
Wow. And recently you just traded Tatis to Ross in our league. We'll have to talk about that another time.
I do.
But here's another kind of trade. It's not really a trade, but if you think about it, it is. Cleveland decided not to pay Art Modell.
Just bringing up Cleveland.
But you know what? I'm bringing up Cleveland, but these things fit into.
He's a homer.
It's not even. But think about it. Ron Harper maybe. But we traded the Art Modell version of the Cleveland Browns with Ozzie Newsome as the GM, Bill Belichick as the head coach, and the makings of the Ray Lewis championship Ravens. And we were like, oh, you guys go. We'll just take an expansion team 3 years later and we'll suck for the rest of time. And we have. Now that, I mean, in a way, that is a decision. They let it happen. So that one hurts a lot. And I'm not even a Browns fan since.
Anymore.
Yeah. No, I can't do it. All right. Any other huge trades in history that you can think of that are just like, wow. And listen, I know you're saying I'm a homer, but really that's kind of true for most sports fans. They remember the ones that fit with their teams.
Yeah. I mean, we mentioned the big ones. I mean, there's been,
but you know what? I bet we missed a couple. So,
we missed some. I mean, where do you put, I know you can't really,
I have something for Casey.
Grade it yet, but Luka for Anthony Davis.
It certainly should be in this discussion. I mean, it's a terrible deal.
That's the one trade where I never seen like a response from a city like Dallas that like Chance this guy has to be fired. I mean,
Yeah,
Nico has to
it
be
was
fired.
bad.
And I never seen that in sports where they chanted the GM's name. To this day, even at draft night yesterday, we're chanting his name. I wanted so badly for the Dallas Mavericks to not pick Cooper Flagg and this GM to give an explanation why they didn't. I wanted that so badly.
That would have been hilarious.
I mean, the guy would have seriously. They would have took him and just hung him in Times Square.
Right, because the
Dallas.
fact that they were able to get Cooper Flagg as the
Easy has a good one.
replacement
I
is
can't wait
like
to hear this.
really helps. All right, go ahead, Case.
How about after the what was it, 2013? The Boston Celtics traded Kevin Garnett, Paul Pierce, and Jason Terry to Brooklyn, all over 35 years old, for 4 first-round picks and 5 other players.
Yeah. Yes.
Like, was that the worst trade in Nets history? By far, but that's got to be up there to be trading for those guys.
The Nets have to have the worst GM, and like they had 4 picks last night in the first round, I think. And
that was when the Russian guy owned the team. What was his name? I forget.
Putin? I don't know.
I am blanking on his name.
I don't know.
Prokhorov, I think was his name. But I mean, that was a terrible one. And then the Nets, like, what was it, like 6 or 7 years later, they decided, you know what, we're going to collect James Harden, Kevin Durant, and Kyrie
Irving. Yeah.
Get the 3 probably most toxic players on earth in one team. And they dealt away all kinds of stuff to get him, and it was a disaster. So
hey, I have a bad trade that was great for the Cleveland Browns.
Oh.
Ooh.
What's
2013.
This? Yeah.
They were able to get a first-round pick for Trent Richardson from the Colts. Remember how
I didn't even remember it. Wow.
Yeah. Remember how bad Richard, like, he came out of Alabama, all this, he was their first, like, a top 10 pick, maybe.
I think he was like the number 2 pick.
And the Colts still turned around and gave him a first-round pick for him.
You know what, Casey? You just made me feel a whole lot better.
There you go.
I appreciate it. All right, guys, we're going to wrap up here, but put your comments below. We want to hear, what is the worst trade in the history of sports? And it can be ones that we mentioned. It can be ones we didn't. I'm sure we forgot some big ones. Let us know, guys. Keep watching. We're looking forward to talking about all kinds of sports things with you. We're here on Thursdays, 4 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Pacific. Casey and Ross, you do waiver wire shows. That's Tuesday, 4 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Pacific. And Thursdays, 12:30 Eastern, 9:30 a.m. Pacific.
Good man.
So I'm doing my best. I'm actually.
Can we start football soon?
Yeah, actually, we are going to have to start
to.
football soon. I mean, drafts come up for football in late July or early August. They start rolling in. So we'll get that prep going in a couple weeks. All right, guys, it's a pleasure talking with you. Case, Ross, thanks for being here. Let us know. Worst trades in history. Did we nail it? Did we miss something? Weigh in. We'd love to talk with you about it. Okay, thanks, guys. Take care.